So, you've decided to move to the US and understandably you're excited. But have you forgotten one of these things? Because if you have, it could have a huge impact on you and your new life. Let's start with a controversial one. Healthcare. And I am not joking when I say this can ruin you. This one thing can see you going from a big fat bank account and comfortable life to being saddled with some truly crippling debt. But why is that? Well, it all comes down to the fact that the US healthcare system is privatized, which is very different from many countries around the world, and if you're not ready for it, it can certainly catch you off guard. The reason for this is it can be very expensive, very complicated, with a lot of caveats that can see you separated from your hard-earned money should you need to go to the hospital. To start with, you're going to need some insurance, but these vary widely with each plan in both cost, coverage and convenience, some even going as far as to cover Dr. A but not Dr. B, a hospital C but not hospital D, and will sometimes even limit which state they will cover you in as well. And if you have any pre-existing medical conditions that require you to see a specialist, while you can no longer be turned down by insurance companies, you may still incur an additional cost. And since we mentioned costs, let's look at what you could actually be expecting to pay for this coverage. Now this will clearly vary between individuals and their own circumstances, but for the most part you're going to have to pick between one of two categories. Individual plans or family plans. While individual plans can be in the hundreds of dollars a month, to family plans that can range into thousands of dollars a month. Now why so much, I hear you ask? Well, it very simply comes down to the amount of coverage you want, the amount of flexibility you need, and the amount of copay you're willing to part with. So what this all means is that if you want to be covered for a greater number of treatments at a higher percentage of the total cost, while maintaining the flexibility of multiple hospitals and doctors, you're gonna have to pay more. And your copay is essentially an additional fee you pay every time you go in to see your doctor or hospital, and yes, that is on top of your monthly premiums. As you can see, if you pick the wrong plan for you and your family, or just get incredibly unlucky, it's quite easy to find yourself on the wrong side of medical bills that can easily destroy your credit and finances. Now this next one can be both good and bad. Weather can shape a huge amount of your life and how you're going to experience it. If you like the heat, the cold, the rain, I don't know who wants the rain. The snow, if you like it humid or you like it tropical, it's going to have a huge influence on you throughout the year and will dictate what sports and activities your area may have available to you. But luckily for you, America is vast and it can accommodate all these options. But be careful, because weather in America has a dark side that's not only scary, but can be downright dangerous. That's right, it has the absolute worst when it comes to freak weather events. They have forest fires, droughts, earthquakes, blizzards, hurricanes and tornadoes. Now by no means am I saying that these should directly influence your decision making, but a lot of people come from places that simply don't have these, so they often go overlooked. And sometimes there's just nothing that can be done. I mean, I lived in the south, which is generally hot and humid, but in the winter of 2014, Georgia was completely shut down for like 5 days because of the snowpocalypse. Now I know what you're thinking, horrific branding choice, but this weather event was so bad, the name stuck. So what kind of unspeakable horrors and nightmarish things must have happened to warrant the name Snowpocalypse? Well, in truth, about 3 to 5 inches of snow that started to freeze. And at this point, most of you have probably fallen out of your chairs and are rolling around on the floor laughing, but I'm not joking. All it took was 3 to 5 inches of snow that began to freeze to bring the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia to a complete standstill. There were cars abandoned all over the roads, no one could get to work, none of the grocery stores were open, and there were power outages everywhere. It actually looked more like an episode of The Walking Dead, if you were to remove all the zombies, and even got nationwide news coverage. So if you were to compare this to something like the forest fires in California, it's quite easy to see why it's something you should consider. On that note, if you're watching from the US and you've experienced any crazy weather, make sure you leave a comment with your story and any advice down below. The US is known for the open road, motorhomes, and the pickup truck. But what you may not have known is just how much you're going to rely on driving when you get there. Unless you choose to live in a place like New York or San Francisco, you're probably going to have to drive. as public transport is going to be limited and also takes an extremely long time. If you're someone that struggles or doesn't like to drive on highways, you may find this to become quite a limiting factor, as sometimes these are the only links between major cities. Also, it's generally considered normal to travel longer distances and have longer commute times. I don't really know if there's a way to prepare for this, but as an example, where I lived, it was quite normal to have a daily commute of anywhere from an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. Hang on, I know what you're thinking. Isn't gas meant to be cheaper than water in the US? And yes, across most of America, gas is extremely cheap. But the vehicles get less miles per gallon and the engines are larger, so it's still going to affect your budget. We've all seen a nature documentary or two, but it's really easy from the safety and comfort of your couch to underestimate what it's like to live with that wildlife. You probably know some of these animals already, such as mountain lions, bears, and wolves. So let's talk about some of the ones you may not have heard about. Let's start with my least favourite, spiders. Because depending on where you choose to live in the US, these are going to be in or at least around your home. And with species such as the brown recluse and black widow, they can pack quite a venomous punch. So you should never underestimate your adversary should you come across one in the bathroom. Next is scorpions, and there's not a lot to say about these guys, because while they are venomous, they're quite slow and they stay to themselves. But if you live in an area with a lot of them, it is still worthwhile checking your shoes each morning before you put them on, as they are nocturnal and they do like to go and hide in there. Snakes. I love snakes, and the US has a lot of them, and a number of these species are venomous. You have cottonmouths, copperheads, various species of rattlesnake, coral snake, and more. But for the most part, as long as you wear adequate footwear and leave them alone, you've got nothing to worry about. But if you do have a yard with long grass or piles of brush in it, you do want to exercise some caution in these areas, especially if you have children or pets. There's also the Gila monster, which is one of the few species a poisonous lizard in the world. That's all I've really got for that one. I just think it's kind of cool. The US has rabies, and if you're a pet owner, this is one you definitely need to be concerned about. And I would advise getting set up with a local reliable vet as soon as possible, and making sure that all of your animals get fully vaccinated against it. Even if you have animals that generally don't go outside and stay indoors, I would still recommend having that additional safety cushion and getting it anyway, because it's not unusual for cheeky animals such as raccoons to venture inside and have a look around. Number 5, the last on the list, but arguably it's the one that could have the greatest impact on you and your day-to-day life, so make sure you don't go anywhere. You need to pick which state you live in, like you're choosing a best friend, and you need to do so carefully, because it can make all the difference. States are like mini countries within a country, and they get to decide a lot of the laws, taxes, and services that you'll both have to abide by and have access to. A great example of this are recent changes in the US regarding abortion, with many states changing their state laws to become stricter on the practice, and this could have a direct impact on you or your belief system. It doesn't just stop there though. These laws can affect everything from gun ownership to criminality to drugs, and even down to the amount of tax you pay. Politics aside, each state has its own unique history, culture, and cuisine that can affect everything from what topics are taught in education to what shops you'll see on your local streets. Perfect example of this is if you live in a state along the southern border with Mexico, you're more likely to see a greater influence of Hispanic food, and also there's likely to be a greater emphasis on learning Spanish in school. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video today, and if you'd like to learn a little bit more about America and why it seems so obsessed with guns, check out my other video here. And as always everyone, make sure you stay safe, and I'll catch you all next time.